You're standing at the quest giver. You've just cleared an entire dungeon solo, your inventory is full of loot, and you're ready to turn in that sweet, sweet quest reward. You click the NPC. Then all of a sudden, duel request from Sephiroth. You decline. Whatever, probably an accident. Another duel request from Sephiroth. You decline again. Okay, that's kind of annoying. Duel request from Sephiroth. Duel request from Sephiroth. Duel request from Sephiroth. And now they're following you. They're jumping around you. They're spamming emotes. And every 2 seconds, that notification pops up again for the next 20 minutes. Welcome back to MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask. Hey, I'm Boss Mode, and today we're diving into one of the pettiest, most relentless forms of trolling in MMO history. Duel spamming and challenge harassment. It's not the most destructive form of griefing. It won't get you banned, but it will absolutely make someone want to uninstall the game and throw their keyboard out the window. Before we get into trolling, let's talk about where dueling came from and why developers thought it was a good idea in the first place. Dueling systems in MMOs started with good intention. The idea was simple. Give players a way to test their skills against each other in a controlled, consensual environment. No death penalties, no loot loss, just pure skill-based competition. Sounds great, right? Early MMOs like Ultima Online and EverQuest had dueling, but it was pretty basic. You challenged someone, they accepted, you fought, someone won. It was mostly used by guilds for practice or by friends testing out new builds. Pretty wholesome, actually. Then World of Warcraft came along and popularized the modern duel request system. You target someone, type duel, and boom, a little pop-up appears on the screen. They can accept or decline. Simple, elegant, and immediately exploitable. See, WoW's system had a few features that made it perfect for trolling. First, there were no cooldowns on sending duel requests. You could spam them as fast as the server would let you. Second, the notification was pretty intrusive. It popped up right in the middle of your screen. And third, there was no way to permanently block duel requests from a specific player. You could decline, but they could just send another one immediately. Other games tried to improve on this. Guild Wars 2 added duel arenas. Final Fantasy XIV made dueling opt-in only in specific zones. EVE Online's whole combat system is basically one big duel request that can turn into a massacre. But almost every MMO with PvP has some kind of challenge system, and almost every single one has been abused for trolling. The psychology behind why developers keep adding this system is interesting. They want players to have agency, to be able to initiate competitive interactions. They want to foster that fighting game mentality where you can just walk up to someone and say, "Let's go." The problem is they consistently underestimate how annoying players can be when given even the smallest tool for harassment. And here's the thing, the duel system itself isn't the problem. When used as intended, dueling is great, it's fun, it's competitive, it builds community. The problem is that in every MMO, there's a subset of players who realize that the duel request itself can be a weapon. You don't need to win the duel. You don't even need to accept. Its spam itself becomes the grief. So let's talk about the duel spammers themselves. What drives someone to spend 20 minutes spamming challenge requests at someone who clearly isn't interested? The motivations are actually pretty varied. First, there's the ego-driven duelist. This is the person who genuinely thinks they're the best PvPers on the servers and needs everyone to know it. They see you walking around in your raid gear or your arena titles, and they take it as a personal insult. How dare you look successful without proving yourself against them specifically? They spam duel requests because in their mind, your refusal to accept means you're scared. You're a coward. You know they'd destroy you. And they want everyone around to see you declining so they can stroke their own ego. The funny thing about these players is they usually have a very specific idea of what counts as a fair fight. If you do accept and you beat them, suddenly your class is overpowered, or you got lucky, or they weren't trying. But if they win, it's pure skill and you need to acknowledge their superiority. You can't win with these people. Then you've got the attention seekers. These are the players who are just bored and want any kind of interaction, even negative attention. They don't actually care about dueling. They just want you to acknowledge their existence. Maybe they'll spam you with duel requests. Maybe they'll spam emotes. Maybe they'll follow you around jumping. The duel request is just one tool in their annoying toolkit. If you tell them to stop, that's engagement. If you get mad, that's entertainment. If you accept the duel, that's the best outcome because now they have your full attention. There's also the grudge holder. This is someone who lost to you in PvP, or you killed them while they were questing, or maybe you just declined their guild invite once. Now they decided you're their arch nemesis. They will hunt you down across zones. They will spam you with duel requests every time they see you. They'll send you whispers calling you out. They'll try to get their whole guild involved. It's personal now, and they won't let it go. And then you have the trolls that are just in it for the chaos. They don't care about you specifically. They're just going down the line in a major city, spamming every single person they see with duel requests because they think the mass annoyance is hilarious. They're not even at their keyboard half the time. They've got a macro running that auto-targets and spams challenges. They're watching Netflix while their character makes an entire city want to go off. Some players do it for the power trip. They like that they can force a notification onto your screen and there's nothing you can do about it except decline. It's a tiny amount of a control over another player's experience, but for some people, that's enough. They're not trying to duel. They're trying to dominate your attention and disrupt what you're doing. And occasionally, you get the people who legitimately don't understand social cues. They've watched PvP streams where players duel for hours. They think that's just what you do in MMOs. They spam duel requests because in their mind, they're just being persistent. And eventually, you'll say yes. They don't realize they're being obnoxious. These players are rare, but they do exist. The thing that all of these motivations have in common is they're all about the spammer, not about actual competition at all. Duel spam is rarely about wanting a fair fight. It's about ego, attention, revenge, or just being annoying for its own sake. All right. Let's get into some real stories from the trenches. These are tales based on actual events that happened across multiple MMOs. In World of Warcraft, there's the infamous area called Goldshire. It's the first human town new players encounter, and it's become known for two things: role players and duelists. But there was this one guy on a particular server, let's call him Blade, who took duel spam to a whole new level. Blade would stand outside Goldshire Inn every single day from the moment he got home from school until late at night. and he would challenge literally everyone who walked by. Everyone. Level 10 newbies, max level raiders, people who were AFK, NPCs, if the game let them. But here's where it gets weird. If you declined, he would follow you. Not just for a minute. He would follow you across zones, continually spamming duel requests every time the cooldown expired. People reported him dozens of times, but technically he wasn't breaking any rules. Duel requests are a game feature. One guy decided to accept just to shut him up. That was a bad idea. Blade was actually legitimately good at PvP. He destroyed the guy, let's say in about 15 seconds, and then spent the next 10 minutes doing the chicken emote over his corpse. Then, when the guy respawned, the duel request started again. This went on for months. Blade became a server legend. People would warn each other in trade chat, "Blade is in Goldshire. Take the back route to Stormwind." New players didn't know who he was and would accept the duel, then get destroyed and mocked. Eventually, a group of high-level players organized a protest where they all logged characters, stood in front of Blade, and just absorbed the duel request spams so other people could get past safely. Blade finally stopped when the expansion launched and everyone moved to new zones. But for like 6 months, Goldshire belonged to him. In Guild Wars 2, there was this massive feud between two guilds on a roleplay server. It started over some drama. I don't even remember what it was about. Someone stole someone's character concept or crashed an RP event. Typical RP server stuff. But it escalated fast. One guild decided they were going to establish dominance by challenging members of the other guild to duels whenever they saw them. Not just once, coordinated spam. They had people in major cities who would watch for enemy guild tags. Then the whole squad would converge and spam duel requests. But they took it even farther. They started using multiple characters. One person would have like 5 alts, all spamming the same target. So you'd get 20 duel request notifications in 10 seconds from 4 different characters. The game's UI would essentially lock up from the spam. The targeted guild retaliated by doing the same thing. Now you had 2 major guilds whose primary activity was duel request harassment. They weren't even RPing anymore. They weren't doing content. They were just trying to out-annoy each other. It got so bad the RP community on that server basically collapsed. People transferred servers to get away from the spam. Events couldn't happen because they'd get disrupted. The trade post areas became a war zone of notification spam. Eventually, the developer stepped in and added a feature where you could temporarily ignore duel requests from specific players. But the damage was done. That server's RPC never really recovered. This one's from EVE Online, and it's particularly brutal. In EVE, duels are called honor 1v1s, and they're not enforced by game mechanics. It's just an agreement between players to fight one-on-one without backup. Obviously, this gets violated constantly. So there was this player, we'll call him Victor, who was pretty well known in PvP community. He agreed to an honor 1v1 with another player, but when they met up, the other guy brought his whole core with him as backup. They destroyed Victor's ship, which in EVE means losing potentially hundreds of dollars worth of in-game value. Then they mocked him in local chat. Victor was patient. He didn't rage. He just said, okay, and logged off. For the next 3 months, Victor hunted this player relentlessly. Every time the guy logged in, Victor showed up in the same system within minutes. He'd send challenge requests in local chat. 1v1, no backup, let's settle this. The guy would decline and run away. Victor tracked his movements. He joined the same fleets. He showed up at the same mining systems. He became this ever-present shadow. And every time the challenge, 1v1, no backup, the targeted player eventually submitted a harassment ticket, but Eve's developers basically said, this is a part of the game, and you're just going to have to deal with it. So the stalking continued. It finally ended when the target player literally quit the game and sold his account. Victor had won through sheer persistence and psychological warfare. He turned the challenge request into a weapon more powerful than any ship in that game. That last story in particular shows how dual system spam and challenge harassment can cross the line from annoying trolling into actual psychological harassment. Victor was within the rules, but that doesn't mean what he did was okay. There's a big difference between being persistent and being predatory. So, how have game developers tried to deal with this problem? And why is dual spam still such a common issue despite years of complaints? Let's start with World of Warcraft, since they basically set the standard. For years, WoW did almost nothing about dual spam. Their position was basically just decline and ignore it, but players kept complaining, so Blizzard eventually added some half measures. They added a slight cooldown to how fast you could send duel requests, but it was like 2 seconds, so it barely mattered. They made it so you could report players for spam, but that only worked if the spam was in chat, not for game mechanics. They suggested players use the ignore function, but ignoring someone doesn't stop their duel requests, it just stops their whispers. The real solution that players wanted was simple. Let us permanently block duel requests from specific players, or let us toggle off duel requests entirely. WoW never fully implemented this, to this day you can use an add-on to auto-decline duels, but the game itself doesn't have a robust anti-spam feature. Guild War II learned from WoW's mistake. They added the ability to ignore duel requests from specific players after a certain number of declines. If you decline someone 3 times in a row, you can permanently block challenges from them. It wasn't perfect, but that sure helps. Final Fantasy XIV went even further. Dueling is an opt-in only, and it only works in specific areas. You can't duel in cities, you can't duel near important NPCs, and both players have to be in the designated duel zone. This basically killed duel spam in Final Fantasy, but it also made dueling way less convenient for people who actually wanted to use it legitimately. Elder Scrolls Online has an option that allows the player to auto-decline duels in the settings, so the system will auto-decline and you can go on with whatever you were doing with no interruptions. Black Desert Online tried to split the difference. They have dual request cooldowns, they let you block requests, and they have designated arenas. But they also have open world PvP, so if someone really wants to fight you, they can just attack you directly without asking. The problem is, developers are stuck between 2 priorities. On one hand, they want to prevent harassment and spam, but on the other hand, they don't want to completely remove player agency and spontaneous PvP interaction. Every solution that stops duel spam also makes legitimate dueling harder. And here's the thing, duel spam is never going to be the developer's top priority. It's annoying, sure, but it's not game-breaking. It doesn't affect the majority of players. It doesn't make headlines like hacking or gold selling. So it stays on the back burner while more pressing issues get addressed. The result is that in most MMOs, dual spam remains a problem that developers have acknowledged, but they'll never fully solve. They've added band-aids, but the core issue that challenges systems can be weaponized remains. Alright, so you're being dual spammed. What do you actually do about it? Let me give you some practical strategies from the simple to the nuclear. First, the obvious one, just keep declining and ignore them. Most dual spammers get bored after a few minutes if you don't react. Don't whisper them, don't emote at them, don't acknowledge their existence. They want reaction. If you don't give them one, they'll actually move on to someone else. Second, you can just move locations. If you're in a city and someone's spamming you, just go somewhere else. Yeah, it sucks that you have to be the one that leaves, but sometimes it's the path to least resistance. Teleport to a different hub, go out into the world, do some quests. Most dual spammers aren't dedicated enough to follow you across multiple zones. Third, use the in-game tools available. If the game lets you block dual requests from specific players, do it. If you can report for harassment, do that too, even if it doesn't immediately fix the problem. It creates a record. If enough people report someone, GMs might actually do something about it. Fourth, get creative with add-ons and macros. The games that allow UI customization can often create scripts that auto-decline duels or hide the notifications entirely. World of Warcraft players have been using add-ons like this for years. It's not a perfect solution, but it sure helps. Fifth, the social solution. Call them out publicly. If someone has spam challenged you in a major city, say something in general chat. Hey, Sephiroth has been spam challenging me for 10 minutes. Can someone help me out here? Sometimes public shame works. Sometimes other players will come defend you or distract the spammer. The community can be a powerful tool. Sixth, accept the duel and intentionally lose immediately. This sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out. Some duel spammers are only persistent because they're trying to prove something. If you accept, walk into their AoE and die instantly without trying, it takes all the satisfaction out of it. They wanted to prove they're better than you. Instead, you've shown you don't care at all. This can sometimes get them to leave you alone because you've taken away their motivation. 7. Fight fire with fire. If they're spamming you with duel requests, spam them back. Challenge them to a duel every time you decline theirs. Turn it into a stalemate of notification spam. This usually pisses them off because now they're experiencing what they're putting you through. It's petty, but sometimes petty is the appropriate response. 8th, get help from your guild. If you're in a guild, ask your guildmates to come help. They can either distract the spammer, spam them with duels, or just stand between you and them so you can get away. Guilds are supposed to have each other's backs, and dealing with trolls is part of that. And finally, the nuclear option. Report, ignore, and if it continues, escalate to a GM ticket specifically citing harassment. Most games have policies against sustained harassment, even if the individual action isn't against the rules. If someone is following you across zones for extended periods just to spam you, that crosses the line from annoying into harassment. Document it, screenshot it, and report it. Here's the thing, though. You shouldn't have to do any of this. Dual spam wouldn't be a problem if developers designed better system. The fact that players have to use workarounds, add-ons, and community intervention to deal with a problem that's been around for 20 years is ridiculous. But until developers prioritize fixing it, these are the tools we've got. Let's talk about something important. Where's the line between legitimate challenge spam and actual harassment? Because here's the thing, not all challenge requests are trolling. If someone challenges you once, that's fine. That's what the system is for. If they challenge you twice because maybe they thought you didn't see the first one, okay, whatever. If they challenge you 3 times because they're persistent and really want to test their skills, that's starting to push it. But it's not harassment yet. But when does it cross the line? When someone sends you 10, 20, 50 challenge requests over a course of minutes or hours? When they follow you across zones? When they send you whispers calling you a coward or trash-talking you? When they get their friends to spam you too? When they make it clear that their goal isn't to duel you, but to make your experience worse? The difference is intent and impact. Persistence is, I really want to fight you, please accept. Harassment is, I'm going to make you miserable until you do what I want or quit the game. It's the difference between asking someone out multiple times and stalking them when they say no. And this matters because some players genuinely don't see the difference. They think they're just being competitive. They think you won't duel them. You must be avoiding them for cowardly reasons. They don't realize that not everyone plays MMOs for the PvP. Some people are just trying to quest, craft, roleplay, or hang out with friends. The duel request interrupts that. There's also the question of context. If you're standing in Goldshire, a known duel hub, and someone challenges you, that's expected. If you're wearing full arena gear and PV titles, you're basically advertising that you PvP. Challenges are reasonable in that context. But if you're on a PvE server trying to turn in a quest and someone spam challenges you, that's different. If you're clearly AFK and someone spams you 50 duel requests, that's harassment. If you've explicitly asked them to stop and they don't, definitely harassment. The problem is that MMOs don't give us good tools to enforce these boundaries. In real life, if someone keeps asking you to fight them after you've said no, you can walk away. You can call the police, or you can get a restraining order. In MMOs, your options are way more limited. You can decline, you can ignore, you can report, but none of these actually stop the behavior in the moment. So we end up in this situation where players have to deal with harassment that wouldn't be tolerated in any other context. And developers shrug and say, just decline the duel. But it's not good enough. Look, duel spamming is never going to be the biggest problem in MMOs. It's not as destructive as account hacking or toxic as verbal abuse. But it's one of those persistent, annoying behaviors that makes community worse for everyone. If you're someone who spams duel requests, ask yourself, are you actually trying to fight, or are you just trying to be annoying? Because if you have to spam someone dozens of times to get a response, maybe they're not interested. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they don't PvP. And that's okay. Let people play the game the way that they want to play it. And if you're on the receiving end, remember that you don't owe anyone a duel. You paid for the game. You're here to have fun, and some stranger's ego isn't your responsibility. Decline without guilt. Use the tools available to you, and don't let someone's persistence make you feel like you have to engage. Dueling should be fun. It should be consensual. It should be about competition and skill. When it becomes a tool for harassment, it stops being a feature and starts being a problem. Next week on MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask, we're diving into the most creative griefing tactics we've ever seen. We're talking about the trolls who turn game mechanics into art form, for better or worse. You definitely don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and support the podcast. Tell your guildmates, share it on Discord, and leave us a review. It really helps us pulling back the mask on MMO madness. And if you've got a dual spam horror story or dealt with a legendary challenge troll, email us at podcast@mmomadness.com. Until then, stay sharp, know when to decline, and remember, no means no, even in video games. I'm Boss Mode, and hey, thanks for listening.